Good morning, guys. It is Monday, March the 23rd, and we are all getting ready to begin our second week of online learning. And if you are watching this video, most likely you are one of my students in either kindergarten or first or second grade. I'm trying to think. I don't think, maybe one third grader, maybe he's watching. But anyway, I hope that last week went really well for you and your family and that you're getting a handle on online learning and that things are going well for you during this period of time that you're not in school. Know that I'm thinking about you and feel free to reach out to me at any time. I will be glad to help you in any way that I can. At the end of this lesson, I will share my email again so that your parents would have it if you need Play-Doh or any sort of school supplies. I really would be more than happy to bring it to you. I brought some things from my office actually that are just sitting here beside my fridge that I can bring out to anyone that needs it. So please share that information with me. Today, we're going to continue reading an Arthur story and do some sentences from this story. It's called Arthur's April Fool. Now, April Fool is the first day of April. So that's still like another week and a half away. But next week, I wanted to read you guys an Easter story. So I thought we would go ahead and do April Fools today. So I'm going to read the story and then we'll do first, middle, and end. 1, 2, 3 on the sentences and write one sentence that we've come up with from the story. So get ready. Arthur's April Fool. Let me see if I can position it a little better. It was the last day of March. The joke shop was full of people getting ready for April Fool's Day. Arthur and Buster tried out everything. Buster brought sneezing powder. Arthur got a fake telescope that gave whoever looked through it a black eye. But Arthur didn't feel like playing jokes. He kept thinking about Binky Barnes. Who is Binky Barnes? Asked Buster. Picture King Kong. Now double it, said Arthur. He keeps threatening to punch me out. There they are, trying on all the things in the joke shop. On April Fool's Day, you play jokes on people. So let's see what happens. Later that day, Arthur was practicing his magic tricks with Buster and Francine for the April Fool's Assembly. Hey, shrimp! A giant shadow covered them. I'll show you a trick, said Binky Barnes. He grabbed Arthur's favorite pen and put it in his pocket. Now you see it, now you don't, said Binky. Hey, watch it, said Arthur, trying to look brave. Why don't you make me, said Binky, and he walked away. Pick on someone your own size, said Francine, like Godzilla. Wow, said Buster, you are right. He is going to pulverize you. That night at dinner, Arthur hardly ate anything. He didn't finish his cheeseburger. He didn't even want any chocolate cream pie. What's the matter with Arthur? Asked his father. He's worried about getting pulverized, said D.W. Maybe he's been watching too many outer space movies, said his mother. Later on, D.W. barged into Arthur's room. Good night, Mr. Universe, she said. Haven't you ever heard of knocking? Asked Arthur. After you get pulverized, could I have your room? She asked. Beat it, D.W. When Arthur finally fell asleep, he had nightmares. Oh, no. The next morning, Francine offered Arthur a cookie. Yuck, said Arthur. This tastes like soap and toothpaste. April Fool, laughed Francine. But Arthur was too worried to laugh. I'll never remember my magic tricks for the assembly, he said. Calm down, said Buster. I'll be your assistant. I'll help if you get stuck. Arthur felt better. He could count on Buster. But before the assembly, Buster got caught putting sneezing powder on Mr. Rathburn's desk. Instead of going to the assembly, he went to the principal's office. I'll blow it for sure without Buster, thought Arthur. He walked into the auditorium. Who was sitting in the front row but Binky Barnes? This was going to be even worse than he thought. Arthur worried while Mr. Rathburn read people's minds. He worried while Francine did shadow tricks, and he worried while the chorus sang that old black magic. Finally, it was his turn. For my first trick, said Arthur, I'll need a volunteer. Binky Barnes jumped on the stage. Surprise, Pipsqueak, he whispered. Arthur gulped. Arthur asked Binky Barnes to tear up a sheet of paper and put it in the magic hat. He said the magic words and waved his magic wand to make the paper whole again. But rabbits came out instead. Everyone laughed. Arthur took a bow. By mistake, flowers fell out of his sleeve. Binky Barnes laughed harder than anyone. Then Arthur had an idea. He winked at Francine. For my next trick, I will saw this young man in half. Binky stopped laughing and took a step back. My saw, please, said Arthur. Binky turned pale. And now the bucket to collect the blood. Binky screamed. He stepped back again, this time right off the stage. Everyone laughed, even Mr. Rathburn. After the assembly, Arthur stopped Binky in the hallway. What's the matter, Binky? You left before I could show you my best trick. No, thanks, said Binky Barnes. Are you sure? It lets you see things you've never seen before, said Arthur. Really? Said Binky. He grabbed the telescope and pointed it at Francine. I don't see anything. Of course not, said Arthur. You have to know the secret words. Tell me, said Binky. I can't, Arthur explained. They're so secret I have to write them down backwards. Do you have a pen? Sure, here, said Binky. Arthur wrote the words. Now go home and hold the paper up to the mirror and you'll be able to read the secret words. Thanks, Twerp, said Binky, and he ran out the door. Boy, that's your best trick yet, said Buster. You did not get pulverized and you made Binky Barnes disappear. What did you write? Asked Francine. April Fool. The end. So, what is April Fool's Day? At the beginning of the story, we learned that Arthur and his friends are getting ready to play tricks on one another for April Fool's Day. So that would be a good first sentence for us to write. Arthur was getting ready for April Fools. So what happens in the middle of the story? He performed some tricks in front of his friends, right? April Fools. He performed tricks. And then the last thing that happened was he was able to trick Binky Barnes, who is a bully in the story. He's not always being very nice to Arthur. This guy, Binky Barnes. So he didn't do like a really mean trick, but he was able to do a trick on Binky Barnes. So he tricked Binky, we'll say, who was a bully. So there's our three sentences. Arthur was getting ready for April Fools. He performed tricks. And at the end, he was able to trick Binky. Now, anytime you read a story with your family, I'm kind of modeling here a thing that you can do. You can think about what happens at the beginning of the story, in the middle of the story, and the end of the story. And you can write sentences, and then when we work together, what I have you do is we mix up the words for one of the sentences. So we're just going to do a short one. We're going to do he tricked Binky. And this helps you get used to what letters at the beginning of the sentence. If it's a proper name like Binky, that's someone's name. So this sentence would go, he tricked Binky. And that's what we would write. He tricked Binky. So then you need to give yourself one line per word, and you're going to write your out of order sentence. You've got tricked, Binky, and he, and you're going to write he tricked Binky. Remember, what goes at the end of most of our sentences is an end mark called a period. You could also, if you were asking a question, you might have a question mark, or if you were excited, you might have an exclamation mark. But we're just doing a regular sentence, so it's a period. He tricked Binky. And look, I've got them all mixed up until I write it in my one line per sentence. He tricked Binky. So remember this trick that you can do with any story that you're reading at home during this break. What happens first, what happens in the middle, and what happens at the end. And then mix up your sentences so you have a little bit harder time. You're not just copying the sentence, you're thinking about the order that the words go in. And then at the end of all of our sessions together, what do we always do for fun? That's right. We play with Play-Doh and get a sticker typically, unless we're having a really bad day, but I'm sure none of you guys are having a bad day right now. I hope all of you are having very good days at home learning with your families. So the last thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to write down my email address. And if anyone needs anything, including Play-Doh, please reach out to me at tmckenzie@gcbe.org. And I will bring you some Play-Doh, or if you need some scissors to practice cutting or anything like that. Because remember, we talked about some fine motor things that you need to be doing at home during this break, including things like cutting. You could cut cardboard, or you can cut paper. You could tear paper. That's a good thing to do for your motor skills. You could string cereal. Anything like that that's good for your fine motor skills. And I'll also be touching on things like that in my tip of the day, which I'll be airing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then the other thing I want you to think about is your sensory motor skills. You know how it's important to move and then sit, and then move and then sit. Try to remember that when you're trying to work at home. Either do your sensory motor animal walks. I talked about that on my tip of the day on Thursday last week, and I'm going to do that again this Thursday. Last week I highlighted frog jumps and crab walks and bear walks. My son Walt was my model, so make sure you check that out. So anyway, the animal walks are great. Running around your house is great. Playing with pillows is great. You can try to make yourself a pillow sandwich, or you could put something heavy on a pillow or on a towel or a blanket and pull it around your house. But just remember to give yourself some movement. You can do the chair push-ups we talked about, up and down, up and down, up and down. Or you can push out on the walls. Just remember to get some energy out, especially while we're at home and on the days that it's pretty. Of course, you can just go out and take a walk. That's a great idea too. But please check out my tips and let me know if I can do anything to help you. This is my longer lesson for week 2, and I will be posting a tip of the day starting tomorrow through the end of the week. And I will see you guys next Monday for your longer lesson. Bye-bye.